Shalom. We're going to start this out by giving honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, Wahawah Kakwadash. Peace and salutations to the living individuals, starting with the elder apostles and elder bishops of GMS on down to the rest of you brothers and the brothers I labor with, who all push forth the will and doctrine of Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai, in all faith, truth, and sincerity, according to the true understanding of the scriptures. To all of you, I say Shalom. So this is just a quick lesson. This is a land back to a land me back to the brother Sharia Padah, his lesson that he had did right here, where it's titled, "When Studied GMS Brothers Speak This Word, Treated Like a School." Right? And something that came to mind when watching this, and or I should say Slakia, that sparked me to want to do this is Sirach, the 6th chapter, because the brother, he goes on to mention, you know what I'm saying, like, you don't want to leave any of the information that's being brought out to chance in regards to you not like retaining the information, holding on to it. And that's why it's important to really like take notes, right? Which is to really to help be studied, be how would I say, to be more aware, more clear, to really help retain that information that's brought out, because the mind itself is fickle, but having it written down, it helps. And I can speak from, personal, from a personal, standpoint, with me, when I first came in, I didn't have no job or anything like that. I was, it was like during the, the pandemic. And, when the Lord brought me into this truth, I had all the time in the world, but I spent most of my days just sitting, watching lessons, and just taking notes, really studying the word, writing down the words being spoken, by the brother in regards to the breakdowns, which helped me to learn and understand, what the word is really saying, right? Praying, fasting, all those things, help me to be able to be the godly man that I am, today. All right. And it's moments where I think back to that are like further affirm this to be true. Because for me, like that's how I can better understand the word, right? It's with me taking notes and things like that. Me looking to make sure I'm holding on to all of the information that's being brought out. I don't know how many notebooks I got that's filled with breakdowns, that were being taught and given. You know what I'm saying? And that's a blessing to be amongst brothers. That can you basically have a direct source. You know what I'm saying? A direct outlet. Or a direct input, if you will, to the Lord. To His ministry, to His wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And it's beautiful to have that, especially knowing that it's not something that's given to everybody, right? The Lord's wisdom is something that's not given to everybody, right? And I'll get that real quick in this Sirach 6, right? Sirach 6 in verse 22, it says, "For wisdom is according to her name, and she is not manifest unto many." So for you to have the opportunity to understand this word is a blessing, because it's not given to everybody. You look at Matthew the 13th chapter, all right, starting at like the 10th verse, I believe. Yahweh Shai just got to speak it to the multitude, but he spoke to them in parables, you know. And the disciples, they asked, why was he speaking to them in parables? And he said, it is for you to know the mysteries of the kingdom. To them it's not given, you know. So to have this opportunity, to have this place, or this space open onto you, to be able to receive this information and retain it, and to have it when most don't have it or aren't given that opportunity, is a blessing. And it's a blessing that, you shouldn't want to take advantage of, And with you reading the word, being amongst brothers and being amongst the Lord's ministry, it becomes clearer to see and understand, like, okay, this is why. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, let me not, because you don't want the Lord to reject you, especially if He gave you opportunity, gave you a moment to be able to figure it out yourself, but gave you a moment to be able to retain the information for yourself, for you to be in position to receive of salvation through His wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, being able to see it for what it truly is, and not just what's being pushed and or promoted within the world, So it says, right, I'm going to jump up to verse 18. It says, my son, gather instruction from thy youth up. So shalt thou find wisdom till thine own age, thine old age, And a lot of brothers are still young, myself included, definitely myself included, because, I'm only 25, but this is something this isn't a suggestion, this is a commandment, and righteously so, because being a young brother, a young man, I'm saying, a young sister, in comparison to those, of a older age, they have more experience, the gray hairs, they have more experience. The scripture's going to talk about that, right? Yes, Sirach 34 and verse 9, it says, a man that have traveled knoweth many things, and he that have much experience will declare wisdom. You see? It says, he that have no experience know a little. And that's why it's important from your youth up to, as the scripture said, receive of that instruction, give to instruction, How to say it, I don't want to butcher it. What was that? 6 and 18. Gather instructions. Say that correctly. That's why we are to gather instruction. It says a direction or order. Detailed information telling how something should be done, operated, or assembled. You see? Order, command, right? Direction. It says commandment. You see? So you are to gather, right, the Lord's wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, for it to be really your backbone for how you go on to conduct yourself, right? That's the guide that helps you, that instructs you, orders your ways, all right. You know what I'm saying? Directs you to go down the right direction, do what's right, and to refrain from doing what's wrong. It says requirement, ruling, right? So these are the things It says right here too, right? A guide, right? Companion. Ooh, Bible. Yeah, completely. You know, the Holy Spirit is like a companion. Wisdom is like a companion. You know, and how the scriptures talk about wisdom is clear to see, right? She is not manifest unto many, as it says in 22. Right, so that's something. So she's not just easily amongst, you know what I'm saying, or with everybody, because not everybody is gonna deal with her correctly, you know. But if you've been given opportunity to where she could dwell with you, you want to be making the best of it, you know. It says, "So shalt thou find wisdom to thine own age." So going back real quick to that Sirach 34, right? It says, verse 9, "A man that hath traveled knoweth many things, and he that hath much experience will declare wisdom." You see? So with those men, like the brother in the brother's lesson, you know what I'm saying? Those holy men, you know what I'm saying? The men of GMS, right, who teach, you know, the 100% truth. Those are the men that you want to cleave to be amongst in regards to looking to receive of that wisdom through their experience, you know. And they gonna tell it straight up. They not gonna sugarcoat nothing. They not gonna refrain from nothing. It ain't gonna be no respect to persons. It's gonna be 100%, you know, clear cut truth. It ain't diluted. You know what I'm saying? It's unfiltered. It's raw. You know how it's supposed to be. And through that wisdom that's given, you know, it helps you to be able to build your spirit up, to be able to, you know, put your flesh into submission to the spirit. So that way you could operate in a way to where you're not allowing your flesh to get the best of you. You know, you're not being emotional. Right? But you being of and in the spirit. Being ruled and ran by your emotions is you know, how you allow Satan to get to you. You know? It says, verse 10, "He that hath no experience knoweth little, but he that hath traveled is full of prudence." When I travel, I saw many things, and I understand more than I can express. You see? It says, acting with or showing care and thought for the future. You see? So you looking to think ahead, be a step ahead of the game. Being, it says, wise, right? Well advised, sensible, careful, right? Circumspect. Scriptures go on to say that be circumspect, you know, especially with the days being as evil as they are, you know. So I believe that's Ephesians 5. So going back to that Sirach 6. Sirach 6:23 says, "Give ear, my son, receive my advice and refuse not my counsel." So that's to pay attention and listen, right? Receive my advice. This is the advice that's coming from men of the Lord, you know what I'm saying? Men that were moved by the Lord, just as the scriptures were, you know? They didn't come from private interpretation, but by men that were moved by the Holy Spirit, you know? The Lord's advice is advice to keep your life. Don't refuse that counsel, right? Because that counsel, which is that advice, which is, you know, those talks and conversations that include wisdom, you know what I'm saying, understanding are the things that's going to help you to be able to keep your life. Right? Verse 26, it says, come on to her with thy whole heart and keep her ways with all thy power. You see, and that's talking about wisdom. You know, just as it says, what is this? How does it say? Yeah, 1 Timothy 4, verse 15, it says, meditate upon these things and give thyself wholly unto them. Right? And that, let me see. Start at 13. 1 Timothy 4 and 13, it says, till I come, give attendance to reading, to exhortation, to doctrine. You see? And in the NLT it says, until I get there, focus on reading the scriptures to the church, encouraging the believers and teaching them, right? And you do that within yourself first and foremost, right? Get built up within yourself first, and then, give on to others, right? It says, neglect not the gift that is in thee, which is given by prophecy, with the laying on the hands of the presbytery. You see? So the wisdom that's given, by those that's more learned, those that's already of the Lord's business, of his congregation, of his church, those that you are to learn from, those that are teaching you, right? It's a gift to even have, brothers to be amongst, to congregate with, to actually build in the spirit with, to have direct access to, because that's not something that's given to everybody. But it says, meditate upon these things, give thyself wholly to them, that thy profiting may appear to all. You see? And the way that your profiting appears to all is by you going forth to teach the wisdom, knowledge, understanding that you've been taught. It says, take heed unto thyself and unto the doctrine. Continue in them, for in doing this thou shalt both save thyself and them that hear thee. You see? So everything that you do is all for a purpose. You know what I'm saying? The information that you learn, you take for yourself, is all for a purpose. It's to help you be the best version of you, right? To be a useful tool to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua and his purpose, right? Just as Yahushua said, I am not come but to do the will of my Father which has sent me. So us in likeness, following after his footsteps, we're ambassadors, we're ministers of of the Lord's word. So we gotta make sure we do our part to hold on to that information, But it says, verse 27 in Sirach 6, search and seek, and she shall be made known unto thee. And when thou hast got hold of her, let her not go. You see? So you're supposed to hold on to this information, and like the brother was going on to say in the lesson he did, taking notes. So like, with you taking notes, that helps you to be able to not let her go. It's like when I read the scripture and then when I write it down, it like stays within my mind a whole lot better because I took more time to, it's like me doubling down. Though I can see it and visualize it in the spirit, me, visualizing it in the flesh and writing it down on top of, me reading it through like, an app like this. It just further, it just doubles down on me being able to retain that information, and to not let the wisdom that is given to me go. Right? It says what? Verse 32, it says, my son, if thou wilt, thou shalt be taught. Right? So if you're willing, you know, if you truly desire it, you will be taught. Because you're going to put yourself in position to be taught. You know? It says, if thou wilt apply thy mind, thou shalt be prudent. You see? That same prudence. It says that that goes into being in the know. You know what I'm saying? Being ahead of the game. Right? We look into receiving salvation, and the way that you go on to receive salvation is by being ahead of the game. You know, the brother he went on to mention, you know what I'm saying, having the being that wise virgin that has the oil, right? The oil is having, you know, the being in the know, having the Lord's word, his word within you, having his wisdom within you. You know, being built up spiritually with the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Right? It says, if thou love to hear, thou shalt receive understanding. Right? So if you love to listen and truly understand what's being said, you know, you're going to receive that understanding. Just like how it says in Jeremiah 17:10, I think it is. Yep. It says, I, the Lord, search the heart. It says, I, the Lord, search the heart. I try the reins, even to give every man according to his ways and according to the fruit of his doings. You see? So what it is that we have in mind in regards to what we hold dear, what we want to do, you know, Lord, he gonna look at your heart, he gonna look at your mind and your intentions, and if they're of him, he gonna give that to you. If it's of carnal things and things that's, you know what I'm saying, that's not aligned with salvation, you gonna be given to those things, you know. But I want salvation, you know, so these are the things I'm gonna seek. For those of you that's of the elect, you know what I'm saying, the hopeful elect, you're going to be in likeness, looking to receive of wisdom, right? Wisdom that helps you to procure unto yourself salvation. But it says what? If thou bow thine ear, thou shalt be wise, you know? And bowing goes into, like, you know, being humble, not being proud, you know? Not thinking that you know everything, but being willing to listen and to receive something that you may not understand, you know? Being willing to listen to the information that's given to really help you be a better version of yourself. Because the wisdom that's given, especially by, you know, those that's amongst you, is wisdom to really help you, you know? The Lord, he don't put you amongst brothers for no reason, you know? You being a man of the Lord, you gonna be your brother's keeper. You know what I'm saying? So the men that's amongst you, they gonna be looking to help you keep your life in likeness with themselves. You know? But every man gotta be convinced in their own mind, so it starts with you putting in that effort. Right? Closed mouths don't get fed, but it says, stand in the multitude of elders and cleave unto him that is wise. Be willing to hear every godly discourse, and let not the parables of understanding escape thee. Right? And a good way to do that is taking notes. Treat this like school. When you in school, you taking notes on everything. You going through practice equations and things like that, such and such. That's how you supposed to, you know, utilize these things. Because this is how you gonna be able to deal and operate within life. It says, if thou seest a man of understanding, get thee betimes unto him, and let thy foot wear the steps of his door. You see? So you want to constantly be amongst those that's godly men. Like the scriptures go on to say in Sirach 37, right? Be continually with godly men. You want to surround yourself with men of the same spirit, you know? It's like the saying in the world, you want to surround yourself with people that are bigger and better than you, so that way you can elevate yourself to be bigger and better, you know? Surround yourself with light, not darkness. Surround yourself with those that have oil, You know what I'm saying? Not those that are without. It says, and if thou seest, Slakia, verse 37, it says, let thy mind be upon the ordinances of the Lord, and meditate continually in his commandments. And what is that word for ordinance? A piece of legislation enacted by a municipal authority. It says an authoritative order or a decree. You see? So the Lord's law, statutes, and commandments, where he goes on to say, you want to keep your mind on his word, on his understanding. You know? It says, he shall establish thine heart and give thee wisdom at thine own desires. At thy own's desire. You see? And that makes me think of Isaiah 34:16, I think it is. Yeah. Seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. You see? It says, no one of these shall fail. None shall want her mate. For my mouth it hath commanded, and his spirit it hath gathered them. So we are to seek the Lord, his wisdom, knowledge, and understanding through his word. Through his book. Cover to cover. You know? And look to actually hold on to the wisdom that's given, the understanding, the guidance that's given with it. That way we can utilize it within our daily lives, within our daily walks, right? The moments that we're getting tried, the moments that we get chastised, you know what I'm saying? What even if the moments are grievous, where it's, you know, it's painful, it's unpleasant in the moment, getting through it using the Lord's wisdom is what's going to be more joyous, because you're going to see what the Lord said was true. And on top of that, when you don't go on to deny the Lord, reject the Lord, he gonna give you double. Look at the account of Job, you know? So that's really it. You know, that's the point. You know, like I said, you know, this was a land back to the brother's lesson. You know what I'm saying? Just give him my piece. But yeah, that's really it. So, Lord willing, has been edifying with that. I'm going to give honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh. Bashim Yahweh Shai, Wahawah Kakwadash. Till next time, Shalom.